Did you know that John Boehner was once a raving conservative revolutionary? Oh, yes, yes, yes. My buddy Craig Shirley, the foremost expert on Ronald Reagan, has written excellent books on Reagan and so forth, a good friend of mine. He found an article, January 3rd, 1993. You're going to want to hear this from the Cleveland Plain Dealer. They did a little expose of Big Johnny. Johnny Boehner, a Westchester Republican, quit the state legislature in 1990 to challenge a better-known, better-financed former congressman for the 8th Congressional District seat. See, Boehner was an outsider. Boehner beat the odds with a campaign questioning the ethics of his opponent, former Representative Thomas Kindness. In Congress, Boehner has remained combative. He formed the Gang of Seven. This is 1993. A group of Republican freshmen to prod House leaders, including those of his own party, into shutting down the House bank and disclosing the names of members who wrote overdrafts. Boehner said, listen to this, I came as a reformer, but when people in charge don't want to reform, the only way is revolution. Did you hear that, Mr. Producer? Did you hear that, Mr. Call Screener? I came as a reformer, Johnny Boehner said in 1993, but when people in charge don't want to reform, the only way is revolution. Quote, unquote. Oh, Johnny, you've so changed. His tactics have won fans, giving Boehner unusual influence as he begins a second term, but critics warn that he's playing a high-stakes game where the risk often exceeds the reward. Dennis Eckert, a Democrat, decries Boehner's partisan take-no-prisoners attitude. A more effective strategy is that of another southwestern Ohio Republican, he said, Willis Gradison. Willis Gradison was a rhino, but not Boehner, not in 1993. By his own word, he was a revolutionary. Confrontation could be seen by the public as more congressional gridlock, said Eckert. People clearly voted for an end to politics as usual. People want some kind of results. Isn't it funny how liberals always talk like this when they're always gumming up the works in order to advance their left-wing agenda? Boehner says he knows the odds, but for now he's on a roll. Quote, I'm a team player, but the team's got to move, quote, unquote. You hear this stuff? This isn't our current Johnny Boehner, the Speaker of the House. This is the Johnny Boehner of 1993, 20 years ago. A revolutionary that says, I'm a team player, but the team's got to move. During the Democratic convention, Boehner was one of several Republican lawmakers dispatched as a truth squad to counter Democratic rhetoric. Then at the GOP convention, Republican House leaders cashed in on public disgust over congressional scandals with a black and white glossy poster of Boehner and his Gang of Seven cohorts. Boehner became a popular speaker for Republican challengers across the country. He labeled Mary Rose Okar's conduct disgraceful. He called David Boehner a communist sympathizer. Wow. Sounds like Louis Gohmert or Michelle Bachmann. After the election, Boehner lobbied new members to support Dick Armey as chairman of the House Republicans. Armey, a conservative, allied with GOP whip Newt Gingrich, who's more outspoken and partisan than Minority Leader Bob Michael. Armey won a narrow victory, ousting a more traditional candidate. And the close vote illustrates the apparent conflicts Republicans feel as the new session begins. So, ladies and gentlemen, Johnny Boehner was a revolutionary. He said, I'm a team player, but the team's got to move. He challenged the establishment Republican leadership. He backed Dick Armey. He backed Newt Gingrich. He said, I came as a reformer, but when people in charge don't want to reform, the only way is revolution. Johnny. What would Karl Rove say today? Oh, my goodness. Now I go to an article dated yesterday from the Politico. House Speaker John Boehner's right wing is acting up again. First, hardline conservatives failed in a January coup against the Ohio Republican. Then they tried to force a special meeting on immigration reform, but Republican leaders beat them to the punch. Now fearful of a capitulation on immigration and fiscal issues, they want to force Boehner to have a majority of Republican support each time it considers a bill to increase spending. See, Johnny's turned into Bob Michael. Johnny the revolutionary is no more revolutionary. He's a rhino. Arizona Republican Matt Salmon is spurring the latest effort and says he has more than half the 50 Republican backers needed needed, he won't say how many, to force Boehner to hold special party meetings to entertain the issue and make the Hastert Rule more than a pledge that can be broken. And the Hastert Rule required a majority of the House Republicans to vote for a bill or to support a bill before the Speaker would bring it to the floor, because Boehner has brought bills to the floor, big, bad, ugly, big government bills, with less than half the Republicans supporting it, but enough Democrats to pass it. Hastert was a moderate Republican from Illinois. Boehner's even worse. Boehner used to be the revolutionary. Boehner used to be the outsider charging ahead and trying to change this sort of thing. I'm going to keep this article and quote from it often. I know Johnny will hate that. The hope among Republican leaders is that an expected failure of the Salmon effort will show the insurgents that they're only marginal figures in the party. Send a warning to other rank-and-file Republicans that sticking their neck out for the fringe isn't an effective strategy. So you see, folks, once they get to Washington, once they taste power, once they move into leadership, they're part of the problem, aren't they? Johnny Boehner, a self-defined, self-characterized revolutionary, is now the problem. He's a rhino. Hates the Tea Party. Hates principled conservatives. He has surrendered.